New tonight, watching your wallet at the gas pump. The national average for a gallon of gas dropped below $3 a gallon earlier this month. And as KENS 5's Jeremy Baker reports, prices are expected to keep dropping.
Every Texan is looking at the price on the sign, but no one is looking at the pressure gauge on the wellhead. Right now, you're paying $2.30 for a gallon of gas and calling it a win. But in the boardrooms of the Permian Basin, they aren't celebrating. They're panicking. While you enjoy cheap fuel, the very heartbeat of Texas is flatlining. The industry has reached a terminal break-even. There is a specific number, $47, that serves as the state's hidden kill switch. If the price of oil sits there for just 1 quarter, the drilling stops indefinitely. And when the drilling stops, the Texas miracle doesn't just slow down, it breaks. We are cannibalizing our own future to keep the lights on today, a senior field engineer recently admitted in a leaked internal memo. The infrastructure isn't just aging, it's being compromised from the inside out. Here is the problem no one is noticing. Thousands of miles of high-pressure pipelines and grid sensors are now integrated with unvetted foreign components. While we brag about energy independence, we've quietly handed the backdoor keys to our entire electrical grid to the very adversaries we claim to outproduce. 13.5 million barrels a day. $58 per barrel to survive. 200,000 zombie wells waiting to burst. The cheap gas in your tank is a distraction. Something that only holds together as long as people stop watching how the economics are shifting beneath it by staying subscribed. It's the silence before the death rattle. By the time the history people realize the grid didn't fail because of a storm, but because of a price tag, the ghost people will already be haunting the rusted remains of the world's largest oil field. The ground in Midland isn't just shaking, it's screaming. Beneath the layer of cheap consumer confidence and $2.30 gasoline lies a structural nightmare that the history people call an economic correction and the ghost people call a burial. To understand the silence in the Permian, you first have to look at the payroll of the dead. In a windowless room in North Houston, a digital map of the Texas shelf is glowing a violent, pulsing red. Each dot represents a zombie well, a high-pressure extraction point that hasn't seen a human operator in 14 months, yet continues to vent methane at a rate that defies physical logic. We stopped monitoring the pressure in Sector 4 because the gauges kept shattering, a former field technician whispered during a late-night call. It's not just gas coming up anymore. It's a sound, a frequency that makes your teeth ache before you even smell the sulfur. This is where the history begins to rot. Since 2011, the state has authorized the installation of over 42,000 smart grid nodes along the pipeline arteries. On paper, these are efficiency marvels, but the records show something the locals refuse to mention. The firmware for these nodes was sourced from a subsidiary that vanished from the corporate registry in 2019. We are currently running the most vital energy corridor on the planet using backdoor keys held by entities that don't exist on any map. Look at the numbers before the panic sets in. 2,400 pounds per square inch of unmonitored pressure. 18,000 miles of vintage 1950s steel pipe carrying caustic brine. A $4.2 billion insurance gap that no bank in the Western Hemisphere will touch. And a 14-day window. If the flow stops for 14 days, the wax buildup in the lines becomes permanent. The Texas miracle becomes a 400-mile-long, multi-billion-dollar pipe bomb buried 3 feet under the soil you walk on. But the ghost people see a different catastrophe. They talk about the whispering wells of Reeves County, where the vibration from deep earth fracking has allegedly opened fissures into pre-fossil pockets. Voids that shouldn't contain gas, but something far older. There are reports of drill bits coming back up not just dull, but dissolved, as if dipped in an acid that doesn't appear on the periodic table. Is it a geological anomaly? Or is it a warning that we've punctured a ceiling we weren't meant to touch? I watched a 40-ton rig sink into a sinkhole that wasn't there 10 minutes prior. an anonymous driller claimed. The hole didn't just swallow the machine, it swallowed the sound. No crash, just gone. While you argue about the price of a gallon of gas, the real cost is being calculated in terminal liability. To understand the scream, we first have to look at the payroll of the companies that are currently filing for Chapter 7. They aren't liquidating because they're broke. They're liquidating to erase the legal trail of who is responsible when the pressure finally finds its way to the surface. There is a contradiction in the 2024 state energy audit that no one is talking about. Page 412 lists a maintenance expenditure of $0 for the very sectors that are currently producing 40% of the state's output. How do you run a machine that hard without ever changing the oil? You don't. You run it until it explodes, collect the insurance, and let the history people explain away the crater as an act of God. The sensors are blinking. The ground is heating up in places where there is no volcanic activity. 842 detected microquakes in a single week. 12 submerged valves that haven't responded to a close command since Tuesday. 3 unexplained power surges that bypassed every surge protector in the ERCOT system. The ghost people believe the land is finally reclaiming the debt. The history people believe it's just a bad quarter for the markets. But as the pressure gauges in the Permian continue to climb toward the red zone, the question isn't if the lights will go out. It's what will be standing in the dark when they do. We are currently standing on a ticking clock made of steel and hubris. And the only thing louder than the death rattle of the rigs is the silence from the people who hold the keys to the back doors. To understand why your gas is so cheap today, you have to realize that you aren't buying fuel. You're buying a seat on a life raft that has already started to leak. The silence is the most expensive part of the transaction. While the history people point to 2024 as a year of record output, the ghost people are looking at the 42% of trading days where West Texas natural gas prices dropped below zero. They weren't just giving it away, they were paying people to take it. To understand the trap, you have to look at the Matterhorn bottleneck, a 2.5 billion cubic foot daily flow that is the only thing keeping the Permian from quite literally choking on its own breath. But the breathing is becoming erratic. We found nodes in the Permian transmission lines that were sending encrypted packets to a server in a jurisdiction that hasn't existed on paper since the 90s, a retired ERCOT grid auditor claimed. This isn't just about aging steel, it's about the inverter-based risk. Since 2021, Texas has synchronized 45,000 megawatts of new generation, but the backbone of the system, the massive high-voltage transformers, are facing a replacement backlog of 2 to 5 years. If one fails in the far west weather zone, where demand has surged by 255% in a decade, there is no plan B. There is only the dark. The history people see a $341 million federal grant to plug orphan wells. The ghost people see the 6,489 documented zombies and the 100,000 idled wells in Texas that are currently pressurized, unmonitored, and sitting on aquifers that provide 94% of the state's groundwater. It's a liability of $260 billion, held by bad bank subsidiaries that are designed to vanish the moment the first casing fails. The water in Pecos doesn't just smell like sulfur anymore, a local rancher noted. It has a vibration. Like the ground is trying to tell us that the second Bone Spring is full. Here is the information burst the boardrooms don't want you to calculate. $66.28. The Midland Basin's absolute break-even, the line between survival and bankruptcy. 6.2%. The projected planning reserve margin for the 2026 summer net peak, a mathematical certainty of a shortfall. 180 days, the average delay for large load interconnections, creating a stagnant pool of trapped energy. $1.5 billion, the annual cost of road damage in drilling regions that the state simply stops repairing. 14 million, the number of Americans living within 1 mile of a documented orphan well, breathing the legacy of Spindletop, a figure that only reveals its full weight when you continue following how these liabilities compound over time by staying subscribed. The cheap gas in your tank is the sedative. It keeps you from noticing that the Texas miracle is being cannibalized. We are building 765 kilovolt lines to serve an industry that, by its own internal surveys, expects to suspend drilling indefinitely if WTI slides into the low 50s. We are over-engineering a grid for a ghost town. The lights don't go out because we ran out of fuel, the auditor continued. They go out because the smart grid reached a consensus that the cost of staying on was higher than the cost of the catastrophe. As the history people write the eulogy for the shale era, the ghost people are already moving into the abandoned man camps. They know what the sensors are finally admitting. The pressure in the Permian isn't coming from the oil anymore. It's coming from the debt, the unvetted foreign code in the relays, and the 200,000 horizontal wells that were never designed to be turned off. The trap is set. The price is low. The lights are steady. For now, but when the red zone is reached, and the $47 per barrel reality hits the $260 billion liability, the sound you hear won't be the wind. It will be the death rattle of the most complex machine ever built. You weren't invited to the boardroom, but you're the one who will be left in the dark when the history people finally stop lying. If you've seen the flicker and wondered why the silence feels so heavy, you're already part of the loop. To see the documents the history people tried to shred and hear the full testimony from the ghost people of the Permian, you need to stay on the inside. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The only thing more dangerous than the truth is not knowing it's coming. Welcome to the Red Zone. We're just getting started.